Yeah, I mean, we got together and said, what are we going to do? I mean, I was getting calls every day. I mean, hey, you want to buy my restaurant?
Really?
You want this one? You know, especially after we did Beausoleil, then it was, I mean, you couldn't believe how many. I mean, I would tell you that I got offered 20 different opportunities.
Really?
You know, not just in Baton Rouge proper, but around. And, you know, we tried to weigh that, and then at the same time, what's our play? Are we gambling? You know, and then, you know, it was really Patrick's foresight to say, you know, I think now is the time. Maybe it's just we're just solely looking at acquisitions. You know, we can still come up with new ideas, but at the same time, you know, there's going to be some opportunities. And, you know, I think everybody believed, no matter what, that we would get back to some semi-normal at some point and people would be there. And look, it's the beauty of Louisiana. I mean, yes, am I scared that I might price people on the market? No doubt about it, but it's still Louisiana. And it's about sharing food, drinks, alternative beverage, whatever it is, but celebrating our culture here. And that's getting with family and friends. And that's the beauty of this business and why I sit here today as a, you know, somebody that still has the passion and pride and love for everything that we get the opportunity to do.
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, I'm Andrew McClendon, your host of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. We're here in the Propel Production Podcast Studio in Baton Rouge, and we welcome our guest, Mr. Stephen Hightower, Managing Partner of Citigroup Hospitality.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Andrew. Glad to be here today.
Yeah, I'm glad you are. So you're the Managing Partner, so you do have another partner. Tell us about
partnered up with Patrick Veluso about 4.5 years ago.
Okay. And so Patrick, we had his brother on.
That's correct.
John Veluso with Veluso Management just a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago. And so he comes from a very entrepreneurial
That's the truth.
family. So how did you guys connect?
We connected. I was we had just opened up Southfin Southern Pokey, which was a restaurant that I helped start with my former partnership group.
Yeah.
At the time, Patrick was exploring opportunities because his side of the family, John's still involved with McDonald's, but his partnership and their side with the father and another brother or another couple of brothers, they had decided at that point in time to get out of the McDonald's franchise world and move into another direction. Yeah. And Patrick, being a little younger than his other brothers, was still wanting to hang his hat on something that he could be proud of, and kind of explored some opportunities with me in maybe more of a consulting role to review another business that he was looking at the time in the restaurant industry. So we did that together and went and toured a certain area, and that all didn't work out. But at that time, I was, in a situation with, a partnership group that just wasn't working for whatever reason. And the opportunity was there for me to get the ability to take in all of City Pork, and Patrick was a willing participant. And, it was a tougher time for me. But I was fighting, scratching, clawing just to find someone that would come in and do this. And obviously he had the financial wherewithal to be able to participate. And that's where we started.
So how have your personalities complemented one another working together?
It's been the greatest thing that I've been a part of, and having other businesses over the past 20 years or so that I've tried to make work, or different things that worked or didn't. Regardless, Patrick has been the perfect complement. I mean, his background before he was ever able to have any participation in the McDonald's world, his father made him get a professional degree. So he was a CPA by trade first, and then once he accomplished that goal, his dad allowed them to get involved in the restaurants. And so really his real estate background, marketing background, and the financial piece of that is, the perfect complement to me from, being more operationally focused. Now, we play together in some of the spaces and a lot of it, which has worked out great. But, obviously I get to trust exactly what he's working on, and he's given me complete trust in the operational side of it, as well as exploring new concepts. So we've had a lot of fun together doing that.
So did you see an immediate uptick in your bandwidth for expansion once you came on board?
Yeah, it was just I'll tell you, the biggest thing that he gave all of us was the commitment to really saying that, technology and software and learning how to make money. I mean, I think that was part of where I was with my former partnership group. We were uber successful in the standpoint of what this business looks like, and saw customers every day, jam-packed restaurants, and we knew we were blessed in that role, but it was really taking that next step to say, how do we make money? And we had begun that process, but, it takes the financial commitment to really take it to the next level.
So the systems and the processes,
exactly,
and then the investment.
The investment moving forward. I mean,
which of course is what the McDonald's franchise thing is all about.
Oh, for sure.
And how to, if you think back to their story, it was, they were selling a hamburger for 17 cents.
That's right.
So.
And that, and that's really been the biggest growth curve for Patrick coming into our industry is, it's still penny's business in a sense, but understanding that, it's not just about, a singular billboard for a McRib or a dollar value meal. So, but his conciseness, and if that's the proper word, and understanding that little piece, that every little cent matters, and then taking it to a little bit bigger level where, we have higher labor costs, higher food costs, and understanding how it all works within the precepts of what we do, where it's not a cookie cutter, or, I've got chefs that we have to pay to be able to do these recipes and execute properly. But I think putting all that together within the software and what we invested in at that time allowed us to understand how we could take it forward.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, to consider that you want your partner to bring a lot to the table, right? And it sounds like you've made a good choice there. So tell us about Citigroup Hospitality, your concepts.
Citigroup Hospitality is it's just it's been something that people are now learning that we are a restaurant group in Baton Rouge that you can trust. So it started at that time with City Pork on Jefferson, and we had a little catering business. Then that expanded into, and we had actually City Pork Deli, the original location at that time, underneath the overpass, but the interstate expansion plans that still haven't happened today.
And so City Pork, for those who might not know it is, how would you describe it?
Oh, City Pork is an elevated barbecue. It was built on the beauty of a barbecue sandwich, and then cheese and charcuterie, when at that time nobody was really doing that. Now, obviously, you see that growth. It's on pretty much every menu in town. But we were first to the market with that, and really took it to the next level, doing a lot of those things on our own, which, it's very hard, and you have to be know some science, but that really did it. But the Jefferson restaurant was one that was really, the culmination of maybe my background coming from Ruth Chris and Vine Dining and doing a few other restaurants like in that same vein. So we added more of the chef-driven culinary piece to the sandwiches. And that business model has worked for a long time. So.
One of my favorite hamburgers in
I love it
for
too.
Sure. So City Pork's one of your brands. You do some catering there as well?
We do. So
is that a separate building, or is it you run those?
We do. We have a separate building on Government Street. That was part of what Patrick and I did, which was, we'd taken City Pork Catering, which was, doing nominal dollars in the beginning, but people were asking more and more. And then the business we were running out of one of the restaurants. Right. And it was just continually growing, like, doubling, tripling sales each year. So, we ended up getting a standalone building on Government Street. So
cool.
Our next one after that was City Slice, which
pizza place,
a pizza place on Chime Street near LSU, and that was
Bayou.
The old Bayou. Yeah, that's right. A lot of history in the building. But we had also kind of simultaneously agreed to put our first satellite location of City Pork on LSU's campus. And that was a fascinating project that LSU and, Chartwell's food service, really worked hard to design it. They picked us and said, we want you to be here.
No kidding.
They had the graphic designers and everybody participating to make it feel like you're walking into a City Pork. So once again, we needed another kitchen because they don't allow you to cook on campus. So we commissary everything. And that was the drive behind adding City Slice, where maybe not as convenient. We were like, okay, if we get this building, what else can we do with it? And I was like, how about a pizza joint? There's no pizza joints around here. So once again, that trust, he believed in me to get that going. And we're about to be 4 years in on that. And
that's fantastic. What else?
Well, after that one, we got the one on LSU's campus going, and then, Patrick was like, okay, I feel like we're in a good position now. Let's try to go for something that is a little bigger. And that's where I had my eye on the old Applebee's location in Perkins Row, which was is still a very bustling, development. And, some negotiation, and we got a deal done there and opened up Rouge Creole, which is really very proud of that from the standpoint of it. The story there is tracing Creole cuisine from its roots, which can encompass France, Spain, the Caribbean, a little bit of Germany as well, but coming as it evolved to, what everybody eats in New Orleans now. Yeah, so we were able to play in that space, which gave the chefs other opportunities from how they could create their own culinary, own version of Creole, which now we call Nouveau Rouge, which is, the Vietnamese now, and with their presence in New Orleans, Vietnamese food is a big part of Creole cuisine. So it's been able to continue to evolve over time, and the menu reflects that now. And it's been a business that's really continued to be successful and grown over the years. So
yeah, that's fascinating. And then Beausoleil.
Yeah, so Beausoleil is a product of a lot of hard work by our team during the lockdown. So we were open for really about 6 months at Rouge, and then March 16th the world stops. So, and we didn't know what we were going to do. Yeah. And that was basically getting with some other restaurateurs in Baton Rouge. I put together a group called Better Together to just really try to make people aware of curbside service, and that the only way we're going to survive if you're calling in to-go orders, which this is a lot longer story. I don't know if we want to talk about that right now.
I was planning on unpacking that.
But it really fueled Beausoleil as the next restaurant. So,
I think I tried to reach out to you.
I saw that.
Maybe it seems like it was right around the beginning of COVID.
Yep.
And then it became really obvious why you weren't going to be able to come here.
Well, and when I was looking up emails to make sure I was going to show up at the right place today, that one popped up, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't respond to this. But yes, I looked at the date, and that's probably why.
I didn't. You noticed I didn't follow up with that because I quickly figured out what was going on in Ian's world, and so I'm glad we're meeting today.
But look, Beausoleil had a great start there. Then we were like, is this the time to gamble on something else? So, there was restaurants that weren't going to come back, and one of those was one out on Highland and Perkins, and we inquired about that. Obviously, Beausoleil was a restaurant that we had acquired from the Jubins Group, who also owned Adrian's out on Highland Road, and that became something that we knew we could take City Pork, and we wanted to continue to expand into a different geographic area, and that restaurant now is our City Pork Highland and Perkins location, our biggest footprint yet, 6,000 square feet, and it's done really well since we got started. And then at one point in time had negotiations to go into Long Farm for a City Pork. That all kind of fell apart. And but we also have a great relationship with the owner there, Russell Mosley. And he's like, look, I got this pizza place. It's been dark for 6 months. Can y'all do something with that? And I used to manage a wine-themed restaurant in a sense, or a piece of that was like kind of a wine bar before wine bars were cool. So went in there, saw a spectrum that could work for that, and we turned that into Proverbial Wine Bistro out at Long Farm, and that was opened, I guess, 4 months ago.
Wow.
But prior to that, we'd signed the deal on Government Street to take over the Bistro Byron's location, and that's what we just opened up 2 days ago, which is called Spoken Hub, and it's kind of a modern Southern diner in a sense, and then put a little speakeasy in the back called the Breaks Bar, which has been a big hit to start. And got a guy from New Orleans, Alan Walter, who was really the godfather of the modern craft cocktail. So he was looking for an exit strategy out of New Orleans, and we were able to acquire him as an unbelievable piece. And so he's leading the Breaks Bar Speakeasy. And if you haven't been there yet, then I would tell you it's some incredible, inventive drinks.
Very cool,
so
man.
That's where we sit.
And then you had your Turning Point Food Services.
That's right.
I'm reminding you of things.
Yeah, it's sad. I can't believe that I leave that one out, because that's been a real big piece of not only part of my journey with going to Catholic high school, and I believe you did as well. So it's very close to both of our hearts. Patrick and I both graduated from there, and there was an opportunity to take over the food service.
So the Turning Point, I figured there's some meaning behind that name there.
It was a situation where, I remember Miss Mary Lou in the cafeteria at Catholic High, and, it was something that those are the memories that, are that turning point in your life. I mean, what high school was for me was the greatest thing that ever happened. I peaked in high school, I always joke, but, the best memories. So it's that turning point in life. And if we have the ability to nurture that through our food and our hospitality, then that was something, and that was actually Patrick's name idea, and so it plays into well.
That came out of the pandemic.
It did,
didn't it?
It did.
So I was curious if there's another meaning, relating to, like, you guys were shut down. You're like, now what? And you found something.
I think in retrospect, yes. I mean, I think it plays into that as well. That was the turning point when we were, servicing 60,000 meals a day with a 24/7 operation that we put together in 9 days. It was pretty incredible. And, we were feeding 60,000 units of breakfast and lunch per day for 60 days to all of East Baton Rouge Parish schools, which that included us setting up shop to distribute those meals to the families. If you saw the long lines as you drove by schools during the lockdown, that was us out there feeding our community. And look, it was something that will, I still have post-traumatic stress syndrome from the project, but it was still that part where we were able to keep people employed, build a staff of people that really had to work probably harder than ever before in a time where, we didn't even know if we were safe in what we were doing, but we knew we had to get it done for our community. And that truly was.
Now let's unpack that a little bit, because how did all that happen? I mean, did you have Turning Point set up?
We didn't. It happened based on kind of where I started talking about earlier, where we put together this group of 10 restaurants, really, some of our friends in the industry, to create this awareness for curbside to-go business.
Which was not really a thing.
No, I mean, look, people, our style restaurants did to-go, but no, I mean, nothing like what we took on.
Right.
And that, too, was the platform. How many people that want to come to work and still, want to be there to get, and we could employ people. Right. At the same time, the 10 restaurants then took some momentum. We were up to 15, 20 by week 2. And then by the next weekend, I had 70 restaurants participating. And then that began a Ferris wheel, I say sometimes, because it was just, I kept circling around, and then corporate sponsors start reaching out to me, and, Energy was first and said, look, we want to use the pathway of what you guys are doing to feed frontline healthcare workers. So we can support restaurants through channeling 500 meals a day to all the frontline healthcare workers at all the hospitals in town. And that was then leveraged into also helping restaurants, because every one of those 70 restaurants that had the ability to do that were then given a job every day. Yeah. So we just rotated those 70 and feeding everybody, and generated some income that they weren't going to have, but it was Energy, and then Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana step up, and then there was, we ended up getting close to, $750,000 in a fund that we actually used during other peaks of the virus as we move forward. So when Delta hit, we got the group back together and started generating those meals again, going to hospitals. So, and that time, at that time, we were back, halfway operating. So it was still a big bonus for all those people to.
Now, what drove you to do that? You took the lead on that project?
Myself and Emily Alton from Bistro by Rones. Mm-hmm. And, so that was a fascinating project where we learned a lot about ourselves too. But, between the two of us, we kept it organized, and, she doesn't get enough credit for all the hard work that she put into. I was the one that was a little bit more on the media side of things and got some of that. But now that I have that opportunity, I'd love to recognize her just as much as anybody, because she was, my backbone during that time to keep us organized, and I was, executing the jobs. But so that also then put me on some calls with the leadership of Baton Rouge, or at least the leadership that was, really trying to navigate and help as many people as possible. And Warren Drake, the superintendent of East Baton Rouge Parish, and Dr. Nadine Mann, who is a godsend to this community, were exploring ideas of how do we feed our students, because they're cafeteria workers. They were trying to do hot meals, and every day somebody else would drop out with COVID, and they were like, we got to shut it down. And Dr. Mann had heard of other communities doing some frozen meals, I think, that had been affected earlier, maybe in New York or California at that time. And so, once again, this destiny-filled deal with becoming a partner with Patrick Veluzzo, they happen to have the Baton Rouge Distribution Center right down the street from Propel Productions here on South Choctaw, where they just happen to have an 11,000 square foot freezer and plenty of space to do whatever we need to do. So, like I said, within 9 days, we had devised a plan. We partnered with Chartwell's at LSU. So we were using all the LSU Union kitchens because they were shut down. So that partnership, through what we did going on campus, everything was falling into place.
Goodness.
But a remarkable run of, 27 days of 20 hours plus. And like I said, the operation never shut down. We had, 18 to 20 trucks running at all times, back and forth, picking up product. We had just created our own number system. We got 438 meals in this box, and at one time had 9 assembly lines going, from box builders to frozen guys that had to sit in the freezer and build boxes for the kids. And then it was at the last minute.
Did anyone document any of that? Like, that seems like you could make a documentary out of
that
that
experience. It was fascinating. So.
Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, Stephen, let's take a quick break here, get in a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. One of our sponsors, MBD Maintenance, is excited to announce that after 25 years, they're rebranding their company name to Pivotal. It's the same ownership, same staff, same location, just a new name that better represents the services that they provide their clients across the Southeast United States. Pivotal does commercial building construction and renovation. They do tenant improvement work and retail and office facilities. They do installation of dock doors in distribution centers, storm and fire damage repair, and catastrophe recovery for national disasters. The team at Pivotal is simply the best. They're experienced, they crush schedules, and they have an impeccable safety record. If Pivotal can help you with your next project, you can find them online at pivotalperforms.com. And we are back with Stephen Hightower. So, Stephen, you mentioned Turning Point Food Services, providing food service at Catholic High School. Right?
That's right.
And I know you mentioned that you graduated from there, as did I. But I was intrigued to learn about that mentoring program that you do there, the Grizzly Hospitality Group. Tell us what that is and how it works.
Well, it was a piece of the plan from the beginning based on my experience at Catholic High, being involved in numerous clubs. It was such a great takeaway for me, and met so many people when I was in high school, not only just at Catholic High, but as we went to different trips or different things, met people that I'm still friends with today. So, being able to create an extracurricular for the school, and look, maybe a little bit jaded in this, but part of that was also, look, it's still a labor crisis. So are we able to, maybe also platform that into teaching them about service, teaching them how to cook? What Grizzly Hospitality Group is basically a build-up over the course of the year, where we eventually create a pop-up restaurant. So
it's the development of the concept.
Yep.
Like the students are they're all working together.
They all work together.
And we're going to do this kind of.
That's right. So I talked to them, I guess, on a senior day or something I was in the entrepreneurial class. So and what I explained to people there was that the beauty of what I get to do in the restaurant business, even though it's a little different because you got to work on weekends and work when everybody else is having fun, but if you realize how dynamic it can be from the standpoint, I get to participate in construction, I get to participate in finance, I get to participate in marketing, logistics, as we've learned through what we did last summer, and the list could go on and on. So it's such an amazing industry that I really do speak a lot to different groups about legitimizing it. I mean, we've got people that make very nice incomes within our restaurants. So, really making those students understand that, there's so much fun, and we teach the history of food. We teach how, the 101 steps of service, and, just giving them a basic understanding. When they go to a restaurant, this is what you can look for. This is what needs to be good or not good. And, it's really been a fascinating journey. Last year we did a restaurant called Cajun Soul. I mean, I think one of the young men that was in our group last year now has created his own business based on, he was already well suited for where he went, but he was one of our group, and he helped us a ton with new ideas. We learn from them just as much as they learn from us in some cases, but it's been a lot of fun. And there's a teacher moderator, Miss Nancy Herron. She's been great. And this year last year we ended up donating $5,000 through the pop-up of Cajun Soul and to the Brothers Mission there. And that's all of that extra time is put in our managers and chefs that come in and participate. So they get a lot out of it from a service standpoint. And, we make the event happen through our donation of time and product, and
so cool, man,
and all the decor and all that kind of stuff. So it really it's fun. So
I bet y'all had a blast with that. Look, I worked in kitchens in college, and I absolutely loved it. I worked in a few different restaurants, and I had the most fun with that. And I always envisioned that I'd, find a way back in the kitchen someday, but not to be.
I joke with people all the time. I just think everybody needs to work in a restaurant at some point. I wish they could make that mandatory, so you realize that what we all have to do and what goes into it. And it's some days it's easy, but more days than not, it's a little harder to conduct the orchestra of getting all that out in a timely fashion and working with young people to make them better and getting them to buy into what our management mission is. So. But there's been so many rewarding things, and I've seen so many of people that I've worked with and that have worked for me or with me that have gone on to great success. So
for sure. So LSU grad.
And
how did you? What was your degree, and where were you going with that?
Political science. So graduated there in '95, but had run for student government president, and had my campaign party at Murphy's bar at the time, and got to know the owner, Mark Frioli, and I don't know. I went into MBA school as a non-matriculating student. I had to get a C in calculus and missed that easily. So that didn't work out, and I don't know. I befriended Mark. I was like, Mark, can I come be a manager here? And at the time it was hottest place in town, and I wanted to be a part of it, and had so many fun times there. But he gave me that shot, and those guys, Mark Frioli and Bennett Murphy, I mean, really taught me. They were doing everything right. It was just that restaurant too was ahead of its time. But
I mean, they were busy for a long time.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, look up, they've got huge expansion plans now at Fred's. That's still there, and I mean, those guys are totally remarkable. But I just remember them teaching us, you're going to leave your stock bones for veal stock on, and it was just everything about that piece of it. Even though I was in front of the house manager, you had to work 2 shifts in the kitchen. So, and I actually fell in love with that just as much. Yeah. And so it was those guys that really put the platform on. And then, a little tragedy happened that was extremely sad for everybody involved, and the business didn't sustain after that. But, they were able to move on, and I went to Ruth Chris Steakhouse and showed up there and talked to Kevin Kimball and said, I'll do whatever it takes to be a manager here. If that's bussing, whatever, running food, whatever you need, I'll do it. Just get me in some kind of management and training program. And he said, Tommy Mansour's out of town. He was the general manager at the time. And I left there. He goes, he'll call you when he gets back. If we, I kind of knew Kevin. I mean, he was kind of a, known guy at that time, but obviously the legend of Tommy Mansour at that time was something else too. And I left there saying, okay, well, he just fluffed me. Thanks, it was nice, but I'll never get a call back. And Tommy was out of town. So about 2 hours later, Tommy Mansour called, hey, Gus, can you come over for an interview? And I said, I thought you were out of town. He goes, oh, well, I just got back. so they were fluffing me. But I got that interview, met with Stan Harris, who now I work with on the Louisiana Restaurant Association State Board. And I remember maybe saying like 2 sentences in the interview, and Stan told me all about it. And he said, you're hired. And
so there's some big names there, because you have T.J. Moran.
Sure.
Stan Harris, Kevin Kimball, Tommy Mansour.
Yeah.
All running out of that.
All out of that group.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, I talk about that experience all the time. I mean, I ended up being with them for about 6.5, 7 years. They allowed me to go to Memphis and Nashville, did some large market training in Chicago and helped out at some other stores in Jacksonville. So it really...
How many stores did they have?
At that time, they had, I guess, 8 or 9 Ruth Chris, and in their group, and then Ninfas and Rufinos, and I guess it was Donardos maybe back then. But yeah, it was great.
When you think back of what you learned from guys like T.J. Moran, what do you remember most?
I mean, look, it was the most pressure-filled job I've had. I mean, I don't know, maybe nowadays it's a little bit like that, but I mean, they just taught you how to take care of your guests. I mean, they just, you couldn't, if TJ walked in, you were sweating because you didn't know if you had changed all the light bulbs, if everything was going to be okay. And, and he was, he's hard on you, but at the end of the day, I mean, you have so much respect for a gentleman like that. And Stan was who I really dealt with more on a day to day. And, but I knew they always cared about me from the standpoint. I mean, I knew Stan took me on and was willing to allow me to make mistakes, and he was going to let me know about it. But at the end of the day, they allowed me to grow. And if it wasn't for that management experience with them and, all the different people I got to work with, I mean, a legend in Nashville, Paul Pulliam, that, is now no longer with us. But I got so many great mentors through that journey, and then and it's circled back now, and I still get to work with Stan through the Restaurant Association, and he's still a great mentor and is always there to answer the phone if I need anything, and he's really been helpful as I've navigated all of this growth.
So you're learning the restaurant business at a very high level at that point.
Oh, for sure.
But that ran its course at some point, and
well, I mean, I had the dream of trying to open up my own restaurant.
Yeah,
and I was young and stupid, and suffered personal consequences through different things that I had to overcome, and that journey of those type things transpired over about a 10 and 12 year period. But it's one of those things that you got to follow your dream, and I tried to do that at that time. It didn't work out, and ended up working for somebody else in Alabama, and got lucky to be brought back here by Donnie Gyro and Ricky Bearden and Frankie Coladas had come open up a Dreamland Barbecue, so I got to come back home. That morphed into a couple other openings of really cool places, T-Gray's, and then got with Brad Watts after T-Gray's and said, let's do our own business, and opened up a bar called the Happy Note, or reopened it, I guess, in a sense. A long-time popular bar that had closed because the Baton Rouge Community College had grown to where their site was, and then we did that, and that really jump-started my continued drive to try to have my own business. So, and
Uncle Earl's as well.
Uncle Earl's as well. In between that, a little pizza joint. And, but I was just,
How was the barn life?
Tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. Loved every second of it, but not without making a bunch of stupid mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's part of my story, so I'm not afraid of it. I talk about those type things all the time, from the multiple DWIs, you name it, I did it. Very embarrassing to my family and to myself, but at the same time, my mom hates it when I talk about that, but that was part of who I am. If
That's a journey. You wouldn't be there where you are today without all that.
Yeah,
right?
And I get to relate to people because everybody has their own demons and things they got to overcome. So right. I think that's actually been really helpful, especially in our industry when we work with so many different types of people, or from the people that we serve. So, there's not much that I haven't been across in my life that hopefully I can use that as a platform to help people, as opposed to allowing them to make the same mistakes I did.
Look, the restaurant business is tough. right? I mean, what are the numbers about the success rate on a restaurant?
I mean, 94% of them fail to this day.
Those aren't favorable numbers.
No, I mean, in between all that, I had my own restaurant that was a complete and utter failure. I was working at Bocage Racket Club and thought I could do one by still working there and not being involved in it and hire a manager because I was so smart I could figure all that stuff out, named it after my grandfather, and, we lasted a year and a half, but it was a complete disaster, and, I still paid that debt. Only got about $30,000 left, but
that was Leroy's?
Yes.
And where was that?
That was over by Walk-Ons on Burbank, where there's a hotel, Staybridge Suites. I'm not sure what the name of it is now, but... Yeah. But on paper, it was a majestic space that looked beautiful, and you would say, why wouldn't it work? And I wasn't even that auspicious. I was like, if I can just get the overflow from walk-ons that can give them another option, then it would work. But for whatever reason, people just don't want to come around that other corner. But so it didn't work out. But, that was probably the hardest time because I was maxing out every credit card I had to make payroll and you name it.
So what does that stress level look like when you're in that situation? You're maxing everything out. You've got all your bills coming in.
Yeah.
But the revenue's not there. Your profit's not there.
It was just a fascinating thing. And, there's probably people that don't like me. I got people to invest. Yeah. Even on a dying brand or on paper was dying, I guess. I still believed 110% in it. So, I was able to acquire other partners and, it didn't work out for them. And for whatever reason, and at the same time, those relationships will haunt me for a long time. I don't know if I can ever make that right. They believed in the business enough to invest in it, so I guess that's part of business. But at the same time, you hate to let anybody down, and I know I did that along the way.
Trying to get investors or even partners, that's a tough thing because you obviously feel good about your product and your idea and your concept and you need them to help make it happen, to come to fruition. But it's a tough industry. And I would suspect that anyone invested in that would have enough. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone is aware of how difficult a business that is. But
it's the hardest thing because the beauty of the business is you believe in what you're doing, number one, and a lot of people want to be a part of it because it can be dynamic and you get to have a lot of fun and do all these other things.
There's this romanticism about it all, right? It's everyone envisions, just hanging out at the restaurant and it just kind of running.
Right.
And it's just not that.
It's not. And, the hardest part for those people is that, everybody feels that they can cook better than what you think, and maybe they can, but at the end of the day, it's, let's change this and then let's do this. And why aren't we doing this? And those are the things, if you don't stay committed and try to just, you're losing your identity as a restaurant.
Yeah.
And, I've learned that over time. And
it's really interesting because when I consider your business, I think of this modern iteration, which is just a fantastic story. But you just shared with us that, you had 20 years of going through, numerous different, concepts and
a lot of pain along the way. I mean, it's just
to get to that point. But I mean, that's how it works, right?
I showed up at every bank in town trying to convince one of them to say I'll invest in or we'll finance a restaurant, but nobody was going to do that. No bank still. I don't know if there's that many banks that do that today.
It's tough.
So but I was there with my fancy business plan that I thought looked great and trying to sell my story. And, I had people that were very kind to me, but, the answer was no. But
so let's get into the modern Stephen Hightower with what's going on now with the Citigroup Hospitality. And so it starts with City Pork, which was a small business started by, it was operational.
It was operational before I came on board. Yes.
So how did you make your way into that business?
Miss Miriam Jubin from Jubin's family had really helped me at different times because I guess we knew each other back from the Ruth Chris days, but we'd always stayed in contact, and I really owe her a ton because she gave me opportunities, whether that was consulting at Nottoway Plantation to Frankie's Doghouse, which I ended up buying, and gave me some chances when I was still trying to find myself, really.
Yeah.
But she believed in me enough to do that. And then I was at Bocage Racket Club in charge of food and beverage, and she showed up with one of the main partners and founders of City Pork, Trey Williams. And, he said, look, I got this restaurant, and, I'm in real estate. I'm expecting my fourth child, and it's too much for me. Could you help us? And I said, yeah, I'll go over there this afternoon and check it out. And Chase Lyons, who now has made his own name in the restaurant business in Baton Rouge through Soji and others that are coming soon, was there, busting his tail to do everything he could to keep it going. But it was tough because they didn't have a problem. They had tons of people that were waiting around the corner. So when I went back and reported to Trey, it was this is fixable. But you have one problem that I lived at Leroy's hoping a two-top would come in one day, or every day, and nobody would show up. So I said, we can work with this.
And so you ended up buying into that.
I
business.
did.
Yeah. And Trey exited.
And
then tell us how it grew from there.
So then I lived in Old Goodwood at the time and saw the building on Jefferson Highway come up for lease.
That was the old Dejanel's.
It was.
Yeah.
And, historic space from my standpoint based on Dejanel's, and was like, this would be the perfect spot. It wasn't too big. It wasn't too small. It was like,
it was an old Pizza Hut.
It was really an old Pizza Hut. So we got Chase and I at that time, because Trey had exited, had gotten that going and acquired other investors. I think 2 weeks before we were supposed, or a month before we were supposed to get open, then one of those investors said, I can't handle it, I'm out. And so we were back trying to search for money. And at that time, Trey would call me all the time because he really didn't want to leave City Port because it was his baby. So, and Trey had the financial wherewithal to get back in. So we got him back in. And and we're able to close that one out and open it up with, him replacing the other investor. And so that was, once again, another fascinating journey of, how to make it happen, I guess. I don't know if we had alternative loans that, we were paying 30% interest on. Chase and I had just found any way possible to get it going because we'd signed a lease thinking we had all this money and we didn't. So, but we found a way, and that one really has been the differentiator for what City Pork is today, because we added not only the great sandwiches that had made it popular to begin with, but added a culinary piece that has been, the forerunner of what we are as a company today. So, so that was fun.
And then you continue to expand from there. What was next?
Well, we ended up doing City Pork Kitchen and Pie and Industriplex, which was basically taking the same great sandwiches and maybe not going on the high dollar side of the culinary piece. It was bringing in, to that market out there in the Industriplex area where you've got people that have just an hour for lunch. And, it was something that if we did set up kind of a, more plate lunch style, good Southern cuisine, throwing in our smoked meats, then what can we be? And look, it was very successful. I mean, we were packed every day. People are always like, why did you close that one down? I mean, the problem is that we only had about 10 hours a week to make money.
Right.
And, there just isn't a dinner crowd there. And, and we tried 100 different things to try to make it where it was. So, that one was kind of a casualty of, my ultimate separation with Trey and then getting with Patrick. It was just, we weren't going to take on something that was a loser.
Yeah.
It was just, it served its purpose, and we still have a lot of great dishes that we started there that are on our existing menus.
Have you thought about writing a book of what to do and not to do in the restaurant business?
How to screw it up and then survive, I guess.
I mean, you've got so many different experiences. Stephen, let's take another quick break, get an word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. We would like to thank GearTrain for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. GearTrain is a national program management company that specializes in the inspection and audit of conveyor systems, VRCs, robotics, and material handling equipment. GearTrain also manages routine maintenance and repair programs, as well as emergency callouts for clients all across the United States. GearTrain technicians have the experience to keep your automated equipment systems running at peak output. For all of your inspection, audit, and maintenance needs, reach out to Gear Train. They can be found online at geartrainperforms.com. And we're back with Stephen Hightower. So, Stephen, it strikes me that there's been a number of instances in the development of your business where you have found the right spot, the right building, right location, but not have a concept ready for that. And I'm just kind of intrigued with the economics of that. Like, I got to grab this building.
Right.
And now the interest clock is ticking. And now you got to do everything to pull this concept together. I was curious if you could tell us what that looks like.
I'll tell you exactly what that looks like. It's the old adage of you might sometimes have a little horseshoe in the wrong place. And that's my business partner telling me that. So he's waiting for it to run out. I hope it never does. But at the end of the day, yeah, we've grabbed 3 spaces that we just kind of figured out after. I mean, it was, from Beausoleil, where we were going to use a completely different name and go in a whole different direction, to then going back to the name that had such a great reputation and just kind of redefine the menu as far as what identity it would have, and going with the coastal cuisine. And then, even the proverbial wine bistro. I mean, I could see the vision in my head, but what direction menu-wise we were going to go, I don't know. I mean, the beauty of the restaurant business is that, a guy that I look up to a lot said there are no new ideas. Can you just take somebody else's ideas and make it better? That's kind of what our deal is. So, look, I was looking at Emerald's Coastal Cuisine in Destin, went there to eat, and said, all right, I'm going to play in this space. Proverbial Wine Bistro, hey, credit people at Building 5. I mean, they did it first here in Baton Rouge with some of the shared boards. I mean, it's obviously taking off everywhere. You can't not go on social media and not see that same style now. But, people took the charcuterie and cheese boards from us, so I've said, how do I do this here at Proverbial? But it played in the space perfectly for, hey, we want to share wines, we want to share cocktails and pair food with it, which has really been our driver for Rouge when we first opened that up. Even Beausoleil now, we really try, ultimately, whenever we get there, is playing in a space. So how are we continuing to educate Baton Rouge on new ways to eat? And then understanding the history behind those things, and that is part of what our servers need to be talking about when they have interested parties that want to know about it. And, Beausoleil is a prime example. I don't know if you've been there and saw the menu. I mean,
we ate there last week. We ate there Thursday.
But there's a
wonderful meal.
Giant picture of a guy on the back of the menu that people are like, why is this man on here? And meeting with Jeff Conaway, who was a managing partner of Beausoleil, the original, was saying this place was named after General Joseph Beausoleil Broussard, who actually brought the Acadians to Louisiana. And I'm like, that's interesting. Well, where'd he come from? He goes, well, he started in Nova Scotia and tracked all down the coast, and then got put in prison in Haiti or somewhere, and then got transferred back to New Orleans through the prison. But then they said, we're going to get rid of you, and we're going to stick you here in Broussard and Lafayette proper area. You can settle there. So I was like, Jeff, that's why we have to go with coastal cuisine. This is perfect. We can do lobsters from Maine and Nova Scotia area, and then we can travel the coast. And we want to do a low country bowl in Charleston. We could do that. When then, obviously bringing it back to the flavors that Baton Rouge loves, which are centered around, Gulf seafood and all of this. So we've got Caribbean dishes. We've got some different things coming, but it also doesn't limit you. I mean, we can pick up a French coastal dish or an Italian coast dish. So it's been a lot of fun. And so that's kind of how we were going back and forth on what we're going to do. And then I was like, let's define it. Here we go.
It's really interesting when you look back over the last couple of decades, how it seems like the restaurant business has just got so sophisticated in, flavor profiles and different, dishes from all over.
Oh, it's fascinating. I mean, that's been the biggest growth is just, and look, credit Anthony Bourdain and all these guys that are on that, the real TV chefs that are actually doing things that are monumental. I mean, if he wasn't out there taking his tour around the world and sharing that with others, then nobody would know that those things exist. I mean,
that's kind of what helped create foodies and people that want to go and try new things. And
it really did. I mean, I point to that all the time. I mean, those guys were the the trendsetters or trailblazers for what all of us restaurateurs are out there trying to capture, which is that next organic or viral flavor that you can turn into something. So
look, let's talk about another pain point, which we've touched on briefly in the first segment, but COVID, right? And so you had, you started Rouge Creole, you had that going, and you had your other restaurants going, and COVID hits. And walk us through what that was like when, and one day things are relatively normal, and the next you are shut down. Like, with everything that you had going, and what did that look like for you?
It was surreal from the standpoint, it was a mixture of panic and then, just a complete, I remember sitting there just like, okay, well, we just spent a fortune on this restaurant at Rouge Creole. Those bills are still coming in. We had, at the time, probably, 100 employees and 10 or 12 managers. And, now I'm having to tell everybody they don't have a job. And that's not what I've ever been about. I try to always give opportunities where I tell them all that the day you start working for us, I'm going to do everything I can to continue to make it better for you and be able to give you that opportunity to grow. And I always also couch it with, when I can't do that, I'm going to come tell you, and you need to go find another job. Yeah. And at that point in time, I didn't even have that chance. So, that was part of the panic, part of the surreal moment of what do we do? But, I can't, somebody asked me one time before too, I was like, what was I going to do? Change careers? I'm 46 years old and invested 25 years of my life in this. And, there's got to be a way. And that was not only my commitment to everything, but all of our core managers too, that, sacrificed a lot to be able to allow us to survive, allow us to bring back people quicker than everybody else. And, and then I guess by the time the Delta variant hit, it had been so many different things of the ups and downs and not knowing, and not that we were the only people going through that, everybody was.
Yeah, because it was like, we're going to take 2 weeks to flatten the curve kind of thing. And then...
we gotten back to 75% occupancy, and, then the mask mandate, I think, was relieved at one point in time, and then it's back on, and now we're back going through this again. And then you couple that with now the evolution of inflation hitting us. And, we had already were within fighting to try to find products. And, that's even gotten worse now than ever before. So, and we joke with the other restaurateurs. I was at a state board meeting today. New Orleans is still just dying on the vine from the standpoint. These guys can't open. They can't open full hours. They can't get people to work late at night when that was what made them so special. And it's just
that labor.
It's labor. It's just people that we lost because of having to furlough everybody or whatever you want to call it at that time, that found other ways to make money, and they're not coming back. It's getting a little bit better, but it was the perfect storm for our industry and why everybody's continuing to evolve. But it's still tough.
Now, when you look at what the government did in the way of unemployment insurance benefits, which were significant.
Sure.
How, we've all heard stories that people stayed home instead of working, and some, for very good reasons, for health and safety. But how do you look at that? Do you think that?
I'll ask you the same question. If it's, we had to decide what we needed to do. And now you have to understand that, I had a young man that worked for me from going all the way back to Leroy's. I'll leave his name out of this, but very nice kid. Unfortunately, didn't have some of the blessings that I've had in my life, or you for that matter, of education and being taken care of, and he, is not, he was somebody that I said, hey man, we're back doing stuff. Come on back to work. And he just frankly said, Mr. Steve, I never made $16 an hour in my life, and I got to stay home. It's too, I got, and he has a couple children, and he had to take care of his family, and that was his best avenue. Yeah. And how can you not respect that to a certain extent? Sure. At the same time,
but we hear those stories, but
But yeah,
they're real.
I was bitter that people weren't wanting to come back.
Yeah.
And at one point would get angry about it. I mean, but I had to learn how to respect them too for the from that story that I just described. That was really a moment where I was like, we're going to have to do what we have to do. And, whether that's either fear from health concerns. I mean, nobody knew what was going on. I don't fault the government for what they did.
Yeah.
I don't fault anybody. I don't fault Governor Edwards. I mean, Edwards was locked and loaded and engaged with us during the entire thing. I was on a call with him, 3 restaurateurs from New Orleans and a couple from Baton Rouge and maybe one from another part of the state. They were all, they were just trying to figure it out like anybody else. I mean, nobody knew what the right answer was.
Well, I mean, it impacted businesses across the spectrum, all sorts of industries. But the restaurant business was hit particularly hard. And
we're a cash flow business, and that was one part I left out. Like, yes, when we got locked down, we had $200,000 of payroll that was going to be coming out, and we didn't have the weekends business to be able to do that, or the week's business to be able to do what we needed to do. So, that was what would, if I didn't have a great business partner and somebody that could protect us against that, which is why the restaurant business is so tough, why 94% of them fail. I mean, you have to be able to have capital to sustain even the slower times on a normal business cycle, not necessarily a pandemic.
So on top of that, you have like supply chain issues that are happening at the same time, and you have commodity increases and things like that. So, I always think that the restaurant business is, as tough as we've talked about here, and you stack all those things on top, and it almost seems unbearable. But how have you guys dealt with those price increases?
I mean, it's something that we have to monitor on a weekly basis to know what the right decision is. And I was fortunate enough to go on a CNBC interview, and that was part of it. Was there's still this fund, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, that could be replenished to help some of the restaurants that are out there that had applied for it originally. Those dollars have been appropriated for, and we all hope that happens. From the standpoint of what people don't realize is when Omicron hit, then we were down company-wide about 45 people that couldn't come to work, and we were paying into overtime. And you tack on the fact that, look, our pork and all these other commodities that really we base our business on, seafood, you name it, I mean, they're not up just 5% or 8%, whatever they're reporting. These things are up 10, as high as 20% in some cases for certain things. And then when we've built menus around crab meat and oysters and you can't get them, and if you can, then they're triple in price, it's like, are we going to get to a point where the restaurant business isn't attractive for people to go to?
Yeah. Right?
If we did pass on all of that to our guests, then nobody would eat in a restaurant ever again. I mean, really. I mean, and I think that's what everybody needs to realize right now is that's what that is. I mean, I'm glad we're getting past that now and hopefully never have to go into it. But, it was pretty plain and simple. If we're going to have to face something again, I think that you're going to really see the attrition and why that was, still a vital conversation to have. Because
obviously, so many restaurants didn't make it through that time, and which created some opportunities for you and your partner, which we've discussed. But when you look at that, starting something organic, say like Rouge Creole, and buying a business that's has a revenue stream like Beau Soleil, and you're going into business pretty quickly versus the time and energy and expense in creating something new. Do you look at that and go, given a choice, I'd love to go this direction or that?
Yeah, I mean, that was, look, we got together and said, what are we going to do? I mean, I was getting calls every day. I mean, hey, you want to buy my restaurant?
Really?
You want this one? When especially after we did Beau Soleil, then it was, I mean, you couldn't believe how many. I mean, I would tell you that I got offered 20 different opportunities. Really? Not just in Baton Rouge proper, but around. And, we tried to weigh that. And then at the same time, what's our play? Are we gambling? And then, it was really Patrick's foresight to say, I think now is the time. Maybe it's just, we're just solely looking at acquisitions. We can still come up with new ideas, but at the same time, there's going to be some opportunities. And, I think everybody believed, no matter what, that we would get back to some semi-normal at some point and people would be there. And look, it's the beauty of Louisiana. I mean, yes, am I scared that I might price people on the market? No doubt about it, but it's still Louisiana. And it's about sharing food, drinks, alternative beverage, whatever it is, but celebrating our culture here and that's getting with family and friends. And that's the beauty of this business, and why I sit here today as a, somebody that still has the passion and pride and love for everything that we get the opportunity to do. And that's whether it's country stars when I worked at the Ruth Chris in Nashville, or a guy that has saved up all year to come, take his wife for his anniversary to Rouge Creole, and, respecting each and every one of those the same. And at the same time, I think the pandemic also has made me understand more about, really understand that these employees are the ones that do it for me every day.
Yeah.
I mean, the ones that are willing to work 60-hour weeks. And, look, it's a 40-hour work week for a reason, because after that, you get tired.
Yeah. I can imagine, only imagine what it's like for you when you wake up in the morning and knowing what's ahead of you in a given day, compared to, someone who does have kind of a set routine. But it must be pretty damn exciting, being able to touch so many different products and concepts and brands. And
it is. I mean, I get a kick out of it now, because everybody says, "Oh, you must be so busy," and yes, I'm busy, but it's what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And or I'm, they like, hey, every time that somebody calls, I know you're busy, Rob. I'm like, okay, I am, but the beauty of it too is I've gotten the opportunity to bring in great talent.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of people helping me now. It was probably harder 4 or 5 years ago when I was having to write every check and do everything on my own. So I'm proud of the fact that I get now have this opportunity to bring in incredible talent, people that are committed just like me, that have that same drive and vision to continue to grow this thing. And we're busy, but it's been exactly what we talked about earlier. I mean, I'm really living out the dynamic piece of the restaurant business, which is being able to play in so many different fields of interest for where people make careers out of them.
So as you've built your empire, you've been able to bring on CFO type position, HR type position, marketing.
We're not there on the CFO and HR. I mean, I guess my CFO is Patrick Veluso, so he kind of runs that side of it. But yes, we've, just recently, we had an unbelievable marketing team that we worked with for years that we outsourced that. Now I'm taking all of that in-house. That was something that I thought we were ready for. And, transitioned somebody that had worked in our restaurants, and then hired one person from without to be a partner there. And, it's really, that's kind of been my little pet project here over the past couple months, where we're, really trying to find unique and different ways to engage. Marketing is the toughest job. I tell everybody that I've worked with in the past, and it's so hard to be able to literally put, that type of investment and give it some credibility from what are the true results. So, and I understand part of that's a little bit just creating a brand awareness, but there are ways now within the spectrum of marketing where you can get tangible results from what you're doing in the digital media space, the podcast space, you name it. So, so that's been something that we've been working on. That's one. But yes, I've got 3 area directors, 2 directors of operations. We have a guy that just runs our restaurant inventory software and basically is my resident genius with anything numbers. And
really.
And so we're able to evaluate where we sit from a costing perspective any moment of any day.
Yeah. Well, look, Stephen, it's so cool to watch what you've been building and to know more of the backstory of, all the iterations and experiences that you went through to get to this point. But, you're here now and it looks like you've really got things going really well. I was curious, with as much as you do have going, do you have time to chill? I mean, is there any time for that?
I'm missing our family vacation right now, so because it just so I guess it's kind of the story of my life. I got married, and 3 days later we opened up City Pork Jefferson. So that honeymoon came 3 years later. Yes, I had to miss the family vacation because it just so happened to shake out that Spoken Hub was going to open up right during the middle of that one. So I credit my wife and my family for them understanding sacrifice sometimes. But yes, I hope there's a day that I can normalize that and capture that piece of life that they've all sacrificed, and I've sacrificed some too. But
well, no doubt that's coming because you've done so much right along the way that it's just really interesting to see what you've done. So continued success in all that you do, and I appreciate you coming in.
Andrew, appreciate you having me today and your team that set all this up. So I really have enjoyed talking to you, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. It probably would be fairly easy to look at where Stephen Hightower is today, and it all seems that everything came together fairly easily with his 11 operating businesses. But when you listen to Stephen's story and you get the 20 to 25 year background, you realize it's a mix of so many different experiences, from the college bar and restaurant scene to the corporate restaurant business to owning bars and hot dog stands and restaurants that failed. And you realize that Stephen had to go through so many different iterations, and it was that entrepreneurial drive that carried him and continued to carry him forward until he found something that worked. And then when he took that with all the experience that he had built and gained throughout the years, he was able to get something going. Then when he brought on the right partner, he's been really able to expand. Fascinating to hear his story. Painful at some points to realize how much difficulty he had to endure along the way. But man, does he have it going now. So we really appreciate Stephen coming in, sharing his story with us. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur Podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.